Hopefully, I haven't screwed this up too badly. Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Squalitude, located not far from the Redneck Mecca. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts is curled up sleeping at my feet. Lord Squeakington is lurking about outside somewhere. And the kitten, whose name I've decided is Nibbler, after the Futurama character, is in my room. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cats. Get over it. And this is a Hexenhammer episode where Skullbeard and I read from the medieval witch hunting manual that's responsible for a lot of death in the world. I decided to go with the name Nibbler for the kitten, not only because he was chewing on my extremities, but also because he often makes the same sounds as Nibbler does. You know, that. He and Fuzznuts are getting along a little better. I'm still keeping them separated most of the time, but now when I open my bedroom door, it's Nibbler who does the hissing and not Fuzznuts. But there hasn't been any fights in the past couple of days, so I'm hopeful that I'll be able to leave my door open all the time and they'll, at least tolerate one another. We'll just have to see. Now, as for what all's been going around here, well, landlord's still doing plumbing issues, and it's for some reason it's like on Tuesdays only that he does the work on the water lines to the various trailers. I have not figured that out as to why it's just Tuesday. You'd think he'd want to get it done as quickly as he can, but he's not. So every Tuesday I wake up and it's like my sponge bath day because I don't have any tap water. I don't have any running water. So I take a sponge bath before I go to work. Other thing that was rather surprising is I had to get my ID renewed so I can vote on Tuesday. And I got up early to go to the DMV and renew my ID, and I brought all the stuff I needed so I have a real ID so I can fly home to see my mom, since apparently they won't allow you to fly in a plane anymore unless you've got the super special ID proving that you are who you claim you are. And part of that proof is you show them at your birth certificate at the DMV. Do I need to point out that a birth certificate, just because I have a copy of a birth certificate, doesn't mean that it's my birth certificate? I mean, obviously, if it said I was born in, 2000, you'd know I was full of shit, but, there's a wide range of years that I could use, and plausibly, people would say, oh yeah, that's yours, because there's no fingerprints on it, or toe prints, or anything like that. Just a seal saying that it's an official document. But whatever. So, I discovered that they no longer give you a hard copy of your ID when you go with the DMV. You don't get, a driver's license or an ID card. You get a paper printout that shows what your ID is like, and it says it's an official, and they say they're going to mail you your ID within 20 business days. Now, I want to point out that I have lived off and on in this state for almost 40 years now. When my parents divorced in the late 70s, my dad moved down here, and I would spend my summers and other vacations from school down here, and the rest of the year up in Ohio. And one year when I was down here, when I was 15, my dad took me to the DMV. We got me my learner's permit. They gave me the official paperwork, because it was a little paper thing, right then and there. And a few years later, when when I got my driver's license in Ohio, a month, or 6 months later, or however long it was, right after I turned 16, Ohio gave me my driver's license right then and there. When I moved down here to Tennessee and got a Tennessee driver's license, I got my, I traded in my Ohio driver's license for a Tennessee driver's license, and I got it right then and there. And every time in the past that I can think of, I have gotten my ID or driver's license same day. And I need to point out that Tennessee was so far behind the times technologically in the 80s that they did not have photos on your driver's license. And I was so excited about that. Why? Because my stepbrother was a year or so older than me, and the drinking age in the country was still 18. So my plan was, when my stepbrother turned 18 and he got his ID, or his driver's license for his 18th birthday, I'd have him get another one. Say he lost his, a few days later, and get another one. Because no photo. I can go to a liquor store and say, hey, I want to buy some booze. Here's my ID. And they'd have to sell it to me. Well, I don't remember which happened first. They raised the drinking age. They did a staggered drinking age in Ohio and Tennessee and some other states where, they kicked it up to 18 and then they kicked it up to 19 and then they kicked it up to 21, I think. But it wasn't, they went from 18 to 21. They did a staggered change, and right when they did that staggered change, Tennessee started issuing photo ID driver's license. It was like, fuck, I can't use my stepbrother's ID. But, we even back then, when they couldn't give you a photo ID, or when they just started giving out photo IDs, you didn't have to wait and get it in the mail. You got it right then and there. They had machines that would cut, would print them out and stuff like that. But not now for some reason. I don't know why. So, anyways, I got up early for me to go there and get my ID and get that paperwork. And I was gonna go vote, but by the time I got out of there, I was like, I'm way too fucking tired. I gotta have a nap. And unfortunately for me, the rest of the week I didn't get up early enough to go do the early voting because I could probably have gotten in there. Well, by law, I could be late for work, and it would, they'd have to pay me because I was voting, but they don't know that, and I don't feel like having an argument about that because I'm probably going to have an argument about a few other things, which I'll get to in a bit. Anyways, and for reasons wholly known to the idiots running the state, they do not do early voting anymore on the weekends. And they cut early voting off on Thursday. So even if I had managed to get up early on Friday, wouldn't have been enough time, it wouldn't have been any point because I couldn't vote early. So I'm going to have to go on Tuesday, which is fine because it gave me a chance to find the voter hotline that you call if you've got a problem. So you can say, hey, I'm supposed to be able to vote. They're not letting me vote. What do I do now? And if you want that number, because you might need it for when you go vote, it is 866-687-8683. That's the English number. They do have other languages, but I'm assuming that if you're listening to this podcast, you speak English. So I have that handy on my phone, so if I have a problem, which I might very well, I can say, hey, what do we do here, folks? Now, the other thing is, that was really cool, is that Vietnamese food truck was parked on my way to work on Thursday, I think, or I don't. Yeah, it was Thursday. No, was it Thursday? It was either Thursday or Friday. I don't remember which. Anyways, so it's on my way to work, and I'm like, great! I'm gonna get me some more Vietnamese food. I roll up, and before I get off my bike, the dude who owns the truck is running towards me with his hand out going, thanks, man, for your review on Facebook. I really appreciate it. It helps so much. I don't know how he remembered me. I mean, obviously, I am kind of a distinctive guy, but there's nothing about my profile that reveals that I'm the guy who rides a bike. So why he remembered, I don't know. But he knew it was me. I was, like I said, I wasn't even off my bike before he came charging up to me. He and I had a nice little chat while I waited for my food. It turns out he came to the States when he was in high school. He spent a year or two in a refugee camp in Thailand, and then came over in the late 80s. And the thing that really struck me is he said what he loved so much about social media was he was able to reconnect with all the people just about that he had known while he was in the refugee camp, even though they're spread out all over the world. I mean, literally, you've got people here, you've got people in France and Australia and elsewhere. And he said every couple of years or so, they all get together for a big reunion, which I thought was really cool. So that was nice, and dude loaded me up on the food, so I cannot complain about that, and it was really good. Anyways, the other really funny thing that happened while I was waiting for my food at the food truck was this gal pulls up and she hops out of her car and she goes and gets her food, and then she turns and looks at me, and she has, on her way up to the thing, she said hi to the guy who's the owner, and but when she, after she orders, she turns and looks at me, and she goes, "Are you ever gonna come back to our place?" And it took me a second, and then I'm like, "Oh shit, she's one of the gals who works at the Japanese place I go to every now and then." And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna come back. And in fact, my plan that week, if they hadn't been where they are or were, would have been to grab some lunch at the Japanese place on my way in. So, but so that was kind of funny. Now, of course, we're all on pins and needles about what's going to happen with the election. I have put in to take that day off of work, not only because I don't know if I'm going to have issues voting, but also because I realized I'm going to be worthless at work. Since I work second shift, I'm going to be checking my phone all, once the polls all close, be like, "Do we have an answer? Do we have an answer?" And so I'm just like, nope, I'm going to take the day off. They haven't officially said I've got it off, but they haven't said I don't, so I will find out Monday. And that's why I'm kind of planning to have a bit of an argument with him, because, well, I'm going to be useless at work, because all I'm going to be thinking about is who the fuck won, who the fuck won, who the fuck won. And all my neighbors, not all of them, but 90% of them, are all Latino. And if the worst happens, I would not be terribly surprised if the rednecks didn't roll in here election night and start trying to burn people out. And, I don't own a gun, but I do own a crossbow. And at the very least, I'd like to be able to get the cats out of the house before it gets torched. If I can't slow a few of those fuckers down, because I certainly don't trust the popos to do anything about it if shit goes bad. And of course, we have no way of knowing how it's going to turn out until after the election. And I'm also going to have to turn in a day off request for the end of this month, because my mom, I think I've mentioned that she's coming down for Thanksgiving, I guess, and she wants us to get together, well, Mom and my middle brother are coming down and getting a hotel. They're not staying with my eldest brother, who's a rabid Trumper. And Mom's like, well, your brother thought it would be too much burden to have all of us staying at your one brother's house, so we're going to get a hotel and stay there, and, we'd like for you to join us. So, okay, that's fine. And that's what I'll be doing. And that'll be the 24th? 25th? The Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So, and I don't know when they're going back, so we'll see how it all goes. But I'm going to basically inform work, yeah, I don't care if I don't get my holiday pay, and you don't approve that day off request. I am not going to be here because my mother is 93 years old. She's blind in one eye. I haven't seen her since before the pandemic, And there's a good chance she may not make it to 94. So, yeah. I'm going to see her. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I think you can understand. Okay, now, here's why I said I hope I haven't fucked things up too badly in the opening sting. Because it's been so long since I put out a Hex and Hammer episode, I'm not entirely sure if what you're going to hear is new material. It may be something that I've already played. I've tried to figure it out, but, you know, I have only so much time and I can only stand listening to myself speak for so long, and everything I'm hearing in this is new, but it may not be. We'll find out. You know, and potentially I have skipped something, but nothing that's breathtakingly fantastic. I know that for a fact. And should be able to get back on a steady rhythm, assuming, of course, we don't end up in a fucking civil war in this country. It never should have gotten to this point, but it did, and it fucking sucks. Alright, so with all that out of the way, here's me and Skullbeard, and to lessen the chance that I fuck things up next time around, this episode's going to be longer than usual. So, because I've got like 2 files that I don't have enough information on them when I saved them to let me know for sure when I'm supposed to use them. So, you're getting this one, and then the next time around, you'll get the other one, and then it'll be all fresh material, and it'll all be sorted out, and there won't be this crazy confusion rolling forward, hopefully. And again, it's, you know, even if I got something wrong and I've skipped a part or two, it's not like you're missing anything huge or hugely important. This is just, you know, the text that allows you to point and laugh at the stupids, basically.
Okay, the date and time's going to be all fucked up, but whatever. Oh, there's the back.
And that reminds me, when I was taking shop class in the early part of this century, so we will not think about how long ago that was, with to do some of the assignments, we had to use the school's calculator. This was
school's calculator.
This was one of those highly specialized programmable HP calculators.
Okay.
And the thing the instructor pressed upon us was that if the battery went dead, you had X number of seconds to minutes to swap out the batteries with new ones, or it would lose all its programming. And if it lost its programming, it would have to be sent off to HP to be reprogrammed.
Oh, bastards.
And dude, you know, my fucking out-of-date smartphone is way better than that fucking calculator.
Yep.
And the one of the things that the instructor showed us was he had a student one time who, the guy was a professor at Vanderbilt, and he'd figured out that he needed some equipment to do some experiments, and he figured out it was cheaper to take a machining class to learn how to build the equipment than it was to pay someone to build the equipment. So that's what he did. And when the instructor, showed him the calculator and told him, you punch this stuff in and it does all the equations, and then you punch that into the CNC machine, the guy's like, I want to work these things out on my own, just for shits and giggles. The math to do those equations was 11 pages of standard notebook paper.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a fairly simple program to, do whatever the guy needed to do. I mean, this was an era where, shit, sorry, I got a leg cramp. Give me a second. Oh.
Yep. I had one of those the other day. Well, no, today.
Damn. It's not the worst Charlie horse I've ever had in my life, but But anyways, it was not, this dude was not looking at doing something really highly complicated.
No,
in
but,
terms.
Yeah, no, but it's machining. It is complicated inherently to do things.
Yeah, but
by subtractive means.
Yeah. It was, but it wasn't like he was engineering something for the, a spacecraft or something like that. It was, it was like something dealing with curves, places on an arc, arcs on a curve, something like that, Okay. So you got it recording again?
Yep. We're up and running.
All right. Let me just restart that paragraph. Which was a rich young man in the town of Innsbruck.
I believe so, yes.
Provides us with a notable pattern of this sort of struggle. Again, Henry Miller on Easton. He was so importuned by witches that it is hardly possible for pen to describe his strivings, but he always kept a brave heart and escaped by means of the remedies we have mentioned. Therefore, it may justly be concluded that these remedies are infallible against this disease, and that they who use such weapons will most surely be delivered.
Nothing's infallible.
Yeah,
I hate
and
to break it to you.
And no mention of what those are.
Nope. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. And it must be understood that what we have said concerning inordinate love applies also to inordinate hatred, since the same discipline is of benefit for the two opposite extremes. But though the degree of witchcraft is equal in each, yet there is this difference in the case of hatred. The person who is hated must seek another remedy, for the man who hates his wife and puts her out of his heart will not easily, if he is an adulterer, be turned back again to his wife, even though he go on many a pilgrimage. Pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Is that what we're calling it now?
I forget. I'm sure you've seen the meme. It's like, oh, another thing that um, millennials have killed is the "I hate my wife" jokes. It's like, now it has been learned from witches that they cause the spell of hatred by means of serpents. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find that Blade Runner clip. For the serpent was the first instrument of the devil, and by reason of its curse inherits a hatred of women. Therefore, they cause such spells by placing the skin or head of a serpent under the threshold of a room or house. I wonder if the skin can include the skin that a snake sheds, or if you have to kill a snake and skin it.
Oh, I'm willing to bet the sustainably harvested snake skin would be better for that.
For this reason, all the nooks and corners of the house where such a woman lives are to be closely examined and reconstructed. Okay, reconstructed? I don't understand. As far as possible.
Tear it down, you got to put it back together, or else.
Yeah. Or else she must be lodged in the houses of others.
Well, obviously you're going to spend some time at somebody else's house if they're tearing apart your place.
You think?
Looking for a little piece of snakeskin. I mean, come on. And when it is said the bewitched men can exorcise themselves, it is to be understood that they can wear the sacred words or benedictions of incantations round their necks if they are unable to read or pronounce the benedictions. But it will be shown later in what way this should be done. I'm sure it will.
And now we wait for the page to load, because...
That's it for Part 2, Question 2, Chapter 4. 3.
Yeah. Chapter 3. Because we're now on to Part 2, Question 2, Chapter 4.
Oh, remedies prescribed for those who by prestidigitative art, have lost their virile members or have seemingly been transformed into the shapes of beasts.
Excuse me, I've got to have some chips.
Yeah, but at least I have mute switches. When I shove chips into my face, I just step on these. Just saying. Oh, you got a mute switch too. Nice. Messy lays. All right. In what has already been written, it has clearly enough been shown the remedies which are available for the relief of those who are deluded by a glamour, and think that they have lost their virile member, or have been metamorphosed into animals. For since such men are entirely destitute of divine grace according to the essential condition of those who are so bewitched, it is not possible to apply a healing salve while the weapons still remain in the wound. Therefore, before all things, they must be reconciled to God by a good confession. Again, as was shown in the 7th chapter of the first question of the second part, which members are never actually taken away from the body but are only hidden by a glamour from the senses of sight and touch, it is clear, too, that those who live in grace are not so easily deluded in this way, either actively or passively in such a manner, that is, that they seem to lose their members, or that those of others should appear to them to be missing. Therefore, the remedy, as well as the disease, is explained in that chapter, namely, that they should, as far as possible, come to an amicable agreement with the witch herself. So you gotta be nice to the witch who stole your dick.
I am glad you took that paragraph because there's no way I could have read that with a straight face.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty fucked up shit, man.
Man, wow.
Yeah, I know, it's some phenomenal shit. It's pretty hard to swallow. Anybody who... Yeah.
Man, this is there is some James Joycean layers to this shit that I am not about to touch right now.
All right.
Yeah. And to those who think that they have been changed into beasts, it must be known that this kind of witchcraft is more practiced in Eastern countries than in the West.
Oh, Eastern. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be Eastern. Although now I'm picturing countries being ravaged by giant killer rabbits, a la Night of the Lepus. That is to say, in the East, witches more often bewitch other people in this way, but it appears that the witches so transform themselves more frequently in our part of the world, namely when they change themselves in full sight into the shapes of animals, as was told in the 8th chapter. Therefore, in their case, the remedies to be used are those set out in the 3rd part of this work, where we deal with the extermination of witches by the secular arm of the law. No, and no. You didn't do any of that shit. You're just pretending you did.
Yep. And that arm of the law is decidedly not secular.
You think?
Mm-hmm. But in the East, the following remedy is used for such delusions, for we have learned much of this matter. No, the fuck we haven't. From the Knights of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem in Rhodes. Okay. And especially this case, which happened in the city of Salamis in the kingdom of Cyprus, for that is a seaport, and once when a vessel was being laden with merchandise suitable for a ship which is sailing into foreign parts, for all her company were providing themselves with victuals, one of them, a strong young man, went to the house of a woman standing outside of the city on the seashore, and asked if she had any eggs to sell. Or to fertilize, or whatever. The woman, seeing that he was a strong young man and a merchant far away from his own country, thought that on that account the people of the city would feel less suspicious if he were to be lost, and said to him, "Wait a little, and I will get you all that you want." And when she went in and shut the door and kept him waiting, the young man outside began to call out to her to hurry, lest he miss the ship. Then the woman brought some eggs and gave them to the young man, and told him to hurry back to the ship, in case he should miss it. So he hastened back to the ship, which was anchored by the shore, and before going on board, since the full company of his companions was not yet returned, he decided to eat the eggs there and refresh himself. And behold, an hour later he was made dumb, as if he had no power of speech, and as he afterwards said, he wondered what could have happened to him, but was unable to find out. Yet when he wished to go on board, he was driven off with sticks by those who yet remained ashore, and who all cried out, "Look what this ass is doing! Curse the beast! You're not coming on board!" The young man, being thus driven away, and understanding from their words that they thought he was an ass, reflected and began to suspect that that he had been bewitched by the woman, especially since he could utter no word, although he understood all that was said, and when, on again trying to board the ship, he was driven off with heavier blows, he was in bitterness of heart and compelled to remain and watch the ship sail away. And so, as he ran here and there, since everybody thought he was an ass, he was necessarily treated as such. At last, under compulsion, he went back to the woman's house, and to keep himself alive, served her at her pleasure for 3 years. Doing no work.
Ezekiel 23:20, I believe, is the verse.
Something like that, yeah. Doing no work but to bring to the house such necessities as wood and corn, and to carry away what had to be carried away like a beast of burden, and the only consolation that was left to him being that although everyone else took him for an ass, the witches themselves, severally and in company, who frequented the house, recognized him as a man, that he could talk and behave with them as a man should. Okay.
Now, here's a question that I have. There's no discussion of the eggs being cooked in any manner.
Nope.
So, eating raw eggs, not really a good thing.
No, it's not particularly smart, but yeah.
Salmonella, what a show.
Yeah, but it's never turned me into an ass. I mean...
Now, if it is asked how burdens were placed upon him, as if he were a beast, we must say that this case is analogous to that of which St. Augustine speaks in his De Civitate, which is the City of God, book 18, chapter 17, where he tells of the tavern woman who changed their guests. Ooh, wait. That's a generic pronoun.
Mm-hmm.
Into beasts of burden, and to that of the father Praestantius, who thought he was a pack horse and carried corn with other animals. For the delusion caused by this glamour was threefold.
Huh. 3 for 1 deal.
Who the fuck is Praestantius?
First, in its effect on the men who saw the young man not as a man, but as an ass. And it is shown above in chapter 7 how devils can easily cause this. Secondly, those burdens were no illusion, but when they were beyond the strength of the young man, the devil invisible carried them. Huh. Nice. Thirdly, that when he was consorting with others, the young man himself considered in his imagination and perceptive faculties at least, which are faculties belonging to the bodily organs, that he was an ass. But not in his reason, for he was not so bound, but that he knew himself to be a man, although he was magically deluded into imagining himself a beast. Nabucodonosor provides an example of the same delusion. I don't know. Looks like an ass,
yeah.
Sounds like an ass, talks like an ass, acts like an ass. He's an ass.
Yeah, and
I want to say Nebuchadnezzar for this.
Yeah, Praestantius is a Latin adjective, and basically the only thing I can find relating to it is that it's a species of butterfly found in Thailand, and it looks an awful lot like a moth.
Oh. I'm sure there's more backstory.
Yeah, but not on a quick Google flail, so I ain't gonna worry about it.
Nabucodonosor is somebody that is not Nebuchadnezzar. This is actually... Wow. The most famous monarch of the dynasty of Pashi or Isin, a prince of untiring energy. He led to the victory of the armies of east and west against the Lullaby, Elam, and Syria, and although twice defeated by the Assyrian king, Ashur-resh-ishi succeeded in arresting for a time the decay of the First Babylonian Empire. All right. What do you got? Charax
and
Bornesis Praestantius.
Does that not look like a moth?
I believe that's a moth. Frühstoff,
But it's
1914.
It's a butterfly. And the Nebuchadnezzar, we should point out, is not spelled any way at all to give you the impression that it's dinosaur.
Nope.
But it would, based on the way it's spelled, that's kind of how we're going to pronounce it, because whatever.
Yeah, well, it's Donosaur, not dinosaur.
Yeah, so it's like a donor dinosaur or something. I don't know.
Possibly.
After 3 years had passed in this way, in the fourth year, it happened that the young man went one morning into the city with the woman following a long way behind. And he passed by a church where Holy Mass was being celebrated, and he heard the sacred bell ring at the elevation of the host, for in that kingdom the Mass is celebrated according to the Latin and not according to the Greek rite. So...
Heretics? Are they heretics? Tell me they're heretics.
No. This is implying that the Greek Orthodox Church is heretics, and normally this guy would be exposed to Greek Orthodox churches. And he turned towards the church, and not daring to enter for fear of being driven off with blows, knelt down outside by bending the knees of his hind legs and lifted his forelegs, that is, his hands, joined together over his ass's head, as it was thought to be, and looked upon the elevation of the sacrament. And when some Genoese merchants saw this prodigy, they followed the ass in astonishment, discussing this marvel amongst themselves. And behold, the witch came and belabored the ass with her stick. And because, as we have said, this sort of witchcraft is better known in those parts, at the instance of the merchants, the ass and the witch were taken before the judge, being questioned and tortured. Oh, that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, but I'm gonna let you stop, but I'm gonna let you continue. But I gotta say, look at that ass, and then she beat that ass. I almost choked on my chip.
She confessed her crime and promised to restore the young man to his true shape if she might be allowed to return to her house. So she was dismissed and went back to her house, where the young man was restored to his former shape, and being again arrested, she paid the debt which her crimes merited, and the young man returned joyfully to his own country. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if this actually happened, the debt that she would have paid would have been being killed.
Probably, yeah. They seem to like their extreme punishments and such.
Yeah.
So, there was an ass in a foreign land because of a witch.
But I got better. she turned me into an ass, but I got better.
Yep. Oh my god. Part 2, Question 2, Chapter 5. Prescribed remedies for those who are obsessed owing to some spell.
I gotta interrupt.
You gotta interrupt.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna let you finish.
When I was but a young kid, and I had the hots for this gal, and I was desperate to get her interested in me, I found a book on witchcraft at the local library, and without reading it deeply, I got it because, hey, it had a spell to, sort of a love spell or whatever, right?
Obviously.
And
So what witches do, right?
yeah,
Love and hate?
and the thing that got me was like, it told you how to do the spell, and you were supposed to get the object of your affection in the same place with you, and you're set up your altar, and et cetera, et cetera. And then the two of you were to strip naked. And I was like, if I could get her to strip naked, I wouldn't need the magic spell.
Yep.
And that's when I began to realize it's all some serious bullshit.
Yep.
You all right?
Yeah, I think I'll make it through. We have shown in Chapter 10 of the preceding question that sometimes devils, through witchcraft, substantially inhabit certain men, and why they do this, namely, that it may be for some grave crime of the man himself, and for his own ultimate benefit, or sometimes for the slight fault of another man, sometimes for a man's own venial sin, and sometimes for another man's grave sin. For any of these reasons, a man may in varying degrees be possessed by a devil. Nider, in his Formicarius, states that there is no cause for wonder if devils, at the instance of witches and with God's permission, substantially take possession of men. Like, wow, that just lays the whole fucking thing out right there.
Yep.
Mysterious ways, motherfuckers.
And I'm like, wow. This so explains the weird bullshit that I believed when I was a teen. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I didn't know about this book when I was a teen, because I probably would have really done some fucked up shit. Mm-hmm. It is clear also from the details given in that chapter what are the remedies by which such men can be liberated. Oh, I bet it is. Namely, by the exorcisms of the church. Sure, buddy. And by true contrition and confession when a man is possessed for some mortal sin. An example is the manner in which that Bohemian priest was set free. Who is that Bohemian priest? But there are other three remedies.
Wasn't that the guy that had
but there are three other remedies besides.
Wasn't the Bohemian priest the guy that had the hots for the girl just a couple of chapters ago?
No, I think he was Bavarian.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
But there are three other remedies besides, which are a virtue, namely the Holy Communion of the Eucharist. We're going to give you some wine and a cracker. That'll keep you from jerking off there, buddy. Mm-hmm. No, that's not how it works with teenage boys.
Not at all.
A wine and a cracker is not going to keep them from jerking. The visitation of shrines and the prayers of holy men. No. Nope. I'm not going to go any farther into that, but no. And by lifting the sentence of excommunication. Well,
so they got to throw you out of the club so that you can come back into the club. And then you're better?
Yeah, but like, I remember when I was in high school, I had a buddy who, he was like, I ain't scared of the devil. I'm going to be his right-hand man. Mm-hmm. Okay. Of these we shall speak, although they are plainly set out in the discourses of the doctors. That's capitalized, so who might the doctors be?
Tom
Since
Baker?
all have not easy access to the necessary treaties.
I bet you it's Tom Baker. It's got to be Tom Baker.
The Happiest Doctor.
Well, could have been Matt Smith. Tennant was pretty good. Cassian, in his Collation of the Abbots, speaks in these words of the Eucharist. We do not remember that our elders ever forbade the administration of the Holy Communion to those possessed by evil spirits. It should even be given to them every day if possible. Worst fucking breakfast cereal ever. For it must be believed that it is of great virtue in the purgation and protection of both soul and body, and that when a man receives it, the evil spirit which afflicts his members or lurks hidden in them is driven away as if it were burned with fire. And lately we saw the abbot Andronicus healed in this way, and the devil will rage with mad fury when he feels himself shut out of the heavenly medicine, and he will try the harder and the oftener to inflict his tortures, as he feels himself driven farther off by his spiritual remedy. So says St. John Cassian.
Okay. Because the paragraph started out with Cassian.
And now he's St. John Cassian. I don't know if he's been promoted or if this is another guy. Knowing this book, it's two different people.
Or at least.
At least.
But I looked up Cassian name on the Googles, and it says, meaning son of Cassius, empty, cinnamon, curly-headed. Cassian is a boy's name of Latin and Irish origin. This elegant choice is both a saint and Latin clan's name that translates to son of Cassius and refers to one of the oldest families in Rome. And then I looked up St. John Cassian. He is also known as John the Ascetic and John Cassian the Roman. He was a Christian monk who lived from 360 CE to 435. He was also a theologian, celebrated in both the Western and Eastern churches for his mystical writings. Cassian is noted for his role in bringing the ideas and practices of early Christian monasticism to the medieval West.
Oh.
And he was born in basically an area that now could be considered either Romanian or Bulgarian.
Okay. Still not the Bohemian priest or the Bavarian one. Okay, fine.
No.
Whatever.
And again, he adds, two things must be steadfastly believed. First, that without the permission of God, no one is altogether possessed by these spirits. So, fuck God. If God gives the spirits permission to possess you, and that means you're going to wind up in hell, fuck God.
Yeah, I don't like this game.
Yeah. Second, that everything which God permits to happen to us, whether it seem to be sorrow or gladness, is sent for our good as from a pitying Father and merciful physician. No, the fuck it isn't.
Nope.
For the devils are, as it were, schoolmasters of humility, so that they who descend from this world may either be purged from the eternal life, or be sentenced to the pain of their punishment, and such, according to St. Paul, are in the present life delivered unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh. Man, somebody had a serious bondage kink that they just could not deal with. That the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus Christ.
I think they got more like You know Clive Barker's Hellraiser series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. They got kinks.
And I need to point out that Clive Barker wrote that when he was closeted.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his way of dealing with the fact that he was gay and that society wouldn't accept it.
Mm-hmm. But here there arises a doubt. Really? Here?
Just here?
For St. Paul says, "Let a man examine himself, and so eat of the bread. Then how can a man who is possessed communicate, since he has not the use of his reasons?" St. Thomas answers this in his third part, question 80, saying that there are distinct degrees in madness. Are there not? Can I?
I have some thoughts on this, baby. After living with an untreated schizophrenic for over a year, I have some motherfucking thoughts on that.
I thought you might.
Oh, boy.
For to say that a man has not the use of his reason may mean two things. In one case, he has some feeble power of reason, as a man is said to be blind when he can nevertheless see imperfectly. And since such men can to some extent join in the devotion of the sacrament, it is not to be denied to them. Okay, not where I thought it was going, but...
Yeah. I gotta pee, so let's pause this for a sec.
All right. I'm going to fit in a cigarette break.
That'll work.
Because I can.
Mm. 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 Mm.
Hooray for multitasking.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hang on. Oh, crap.
And now your
Christ.
earbuds are dying, right?
No, they're not dying, but for some reason, Skype has decided not to feed into them. Come on, buddy. Um, no. Uh, uh, my
As
God,
if.
damn it. Why do they make this so fucking hard to find the right setting? Audio and video. Okay, camera. No, I don't want the video. Audio. Microphone. Blue icicle. Noise speaker. No, 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 no. Oh, no. Say something.
Something.
God damn it.
For fuck's sakes.
Come on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
God damn it. Why are the. There.
As long as I remember to shut off my Bluetooth speaker, I'm fine.
I know, but I am hooked to it. Fucking A. Why are you not?
They gotta make everything so easy.
I know, I know. Hang on, let's try this.
Doom, da doom, doom, doom.
Got it.
There you go.
Now, something I want to say is you're talking about the worst breakfast cereal ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking Patreon goal. Communion wafers as cereal at one level, and then at another level, communion wafers as nachos.
Ew! I've never had a communion wafer, I don't believe. Nope. The wing nuts that I grew up with ate white bread with no crust.
I've had both because reasons. For some odd reason, the churches that I went to, even though they were Lutheran, they had, for a while, they would do the communion wafers.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a while, they would do a home baked loaf of white bread.
Huh.
So, yeah, I've had both.
I don't know what's
All
so
right.
fucking holy about Wonder Bread, but whatever.
Well, the funny thing is that the one church, when they asked someone to bake a loaf of bread for the church, they didn't specify that it was for communion.
Oh, nice.
So the person made raisin bread.
Nice.
And so there they are doing communion. And it's not discovered until they start going, the body of Christ, that it's raisin bread.
Oh, please tell me that was an Easter ceremony.
I have no idea. I wasn't there at that particular service. My stepmother related that to me because, for weird reasons, that church had decided to go to bread for a while and then went back to communion wafers, whereas the church I went to with my mother always used communion wafers.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I went to my dad's funeral, of course, we had to do communion for some fucking reason. And I leaned over when they announced that we were going to be doing that. I leaned over to my stepbrother, who has a PhD in theology and is a devout Lutheran, and asked him if it was a gluten-free Christ that we were going to be eating. And he damn near lost his shit. He was laughing so hard.
Nice.
That was the highlight of the funeral. And the only reason I went to that funeral was because I wanted to make sure my dad was actually dead. All right.
But others are said to be mad because they have
Thank
been
you.
so from birth, and such may not partake of the sacrament, since they are in no way able to engage in devout preparation for it.
Yeah, ooh.
I know, right?
That's
like
some pretty...
that sounds like a get out of communion free card to me.
Yeah, but I mean, given the era we're talking about, that's pretty horrific. Because somebody who was on the spectrum would have been considered to be mad from birth in all likelihood.
Yep.
Ooh.
So there you got your ableism to go with your sexism and your misogyny.
Mm-hmm. Or perhaps they have not always been without the use of their reason. And then, if when they were sane, they appeared to appreciate the devotion due to the sacrament, it should be administered to them when they are at the point of death, unless it is feared that they may vomit or spew it out.
Is that thick green soup vomit? Yeah. The following decision is recorded by the Council of Carthage, 26, question 6. When a sick man wishes to confess, and if on the arrival of the priest he is rendered dumb by his infirmity or falls into a frenzy, those who have heard him speak must give their testimony. And if he is thought to be at the point of death, let him be reconciled with God by the laying on of hands and the placing of the sacrament in his mouth. St. Thomas also says that the same procedure may be used with baptized people who are bodily tormented by unclean spirits and with others mentally distracted persons. And he adds in Book 4, Distribution, or probably Distribution 9? Whatever. That the communion must not be denied to demoniacs unless it is certain that they are being tortured by the devil for some crime. To this, Peter of Palude adds, in this case, they are to be considered as persons to be excommunicated and delivered up to Satan. So yeah.
So, yeah, and there were a whole bunch of councils of Carthage, which,
How,
you know,
how
Carthage.
how about the 26th Carthage Council?
Yeah, well, I mean, because the first one was apparently in 251, which was before Christianity became the dominant religion of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they go on to like 525 CE. And I'm not exactly certain which one would have fit that description given.
I don't know. I have no idea, man.
But I think it's important to note that the last sentence is basically says, yeah, well, if we don't like this kind of person, fuck them and kick them out of the church and feed them to Satan.
Yep, pretty much.
What a compassionate religion.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
From this, it is clear that even if a man be possessed by a devil for his own crimes, yet if he has lucid intervals, and while he has the use of reason, is contrite and confesses his sins, since he is absolved in the sight of God, he must in no way be deprived of the communion of the divine sacrament of the Eucharist. And I have got to say, if you have not seen the movie The Exorcist 3,
No, it's been a long time.
this kind of plays into it because, spoiler alert for an almost 40-year-old movie, Father Damien Carreras is possessed by Brad Dourif in the movie,
Okay.
and at the end of the movie, Carreras is freed briefly from Brad Dourif and tells George C. Scott, "Shoot me now,"
Mm-hmm.
so that he can die free of possession and go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of what this is saying. That this is along the same lines, that you have this moment where you're free from possession, so you get the thing that gives you the benefit that gets you into heaven, maybe. And of course, we all know that if you're somebody who goes in and out of demonic possession, you should be killed while you're out of the possession so you can enter heaven, which is, speaking from personal experience, kind of what seems to happen when you're dealing with somebody who is schizophrenic or has a schizoaffective disorder.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments where they seem perfectly rational and they are, they can be a functional human being, and then their condition kicks in and they're ripping the door off the hinges and beating you with it.
Mm-hmm. You're breaking the handle off your frying pan.
Yeah, a large cast iron skillet, man. Literally, those things can last for hundreds of years, and somehow she broke the handle off one of those motherfuckers. It's your turn.
Is it? I thought it was me.
And it's how those are those who are possessed.
How those who are possessed may be delivered by the intercessions and prayers of the saints is found in the legends of the saints. For by the merits of saints, martyrs, confessors, and virgins, the unclean spirits are subdued by their prayers in the land where they live, just as the saints in their earthly journey subdued them. cool story, bro.
Yeah.
Of all the things that never happened, that never happened the most.
Yeah, I mean, that is the best you can say about it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Likewise, we read that the devout prayers of wayfarers have often obtained the deliverance. Oh God, I live near there. Of those possessed. And Cassian urges them to pray for them, saying, if we hold the opinion, or rather faith, of which I have written above, that everything is sent by the Lord for the good of our souls and the betterment of the universe, we shall in no way despise those who are possessed, but we shall incessantly pray for them as for our own selves, and pity them with our whole heart.
Yeah, how's that working for you? As for the last method, that of releasing the sufferer from excommunication, it must be known that this is rare and only lawfully practiced by such as have authority and are informed by revelations that the man has become possessed on account of the excommunication of the church. Such was the case of the Corinthian fornicator, 1 Corinthians 5, who was excommunicated by St. Paul and the church and delivered unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that his spirit might be saved in the day of our Lord Jesus Christ, that it is, as the gloss says, either for the illumination of grace by contrition or for judgment. And really, my biggest question is, what is this fucking gloss that they keep talking about? Is it like a glossy 8.5 by 11 trifold, or?
No, I think it's just like a synonym for gist.
Oh.
Um,
Could be a title.
But
I don't know.
I'm not poking around at this because I'll have a stroke if I go too deep. But I'm just kind of wondering, okay, how does it work that we excommunicate you, throw you over to Satan, so that you can wind up in heaven someday?
Mysterious ways. I'm telling you, it's mysterious ways.
Yeah, it's Gospel of Nicodemus.
Mm-hmm.
Which we're going to have to get to at some point, but not right now because my head hurts. And he delivered to Satan false teachers who had lost the faith, such as Hymenaeus. What the?
Hymenaeus, I think.
Yeah, okay. And Alexander, that they might learn not to blaspheme. 1 Timothy chapter 1. For so great was the power and the grace of St. Paul, says the gloss, that by the mere words of his mouth he could deliver to Satan those who fell away from the faith. That's sort of like the automatic thing that happens if you fall away from the faith. You go to Satan regardless of what somebody says to you. You don't need a saint there, condemning you to hell.
No. You did that yourself.
Yeah.
Except it's part of God's plan, so I'm confused. St. Thomas 6:18 teaches concerning the three effects of communication as follows. If a man, he says, is deprived of the prayers of the church, he suffers a threefold loss corresponding with the benefits which accrue to one who is in communion with the church. For those who are excommunicated are bereft of the source from which flows an increase of grace to those who have it, and a mean to obtain grace for those who have it not, and, being deprived of grace, they lose also the power of preserving their uprightness. So what, they just fall over? Although it must not be thought that they are altogether shut out from God's providence, but only from that special providence which watches over the sons of the church, and they lose also a strong source of protection against the enemy, for greater power is granted to the devil to injure such men, both bodily and spiritually. For God's amusement?
I guess. And that St. Thomas they're talking about has to be Thomas Aquinas. It cannot be, doubting Thomas of the Bible.
Is that real?
Because I have...
Let me poke it. Is that real? Let me poke it.
Yeah,
that
because
guy.
I have read the Gospel of Thomas, the Gnostic text, and there ain't shit
In there
that.
about this?
Yeah. Because the Gospel of Thomas, it's a Gnostic text, and honestly, it is probably one of the best biblical texts ever written.
Really?
And my stepbrother, I gave him a copy of it one year for Christmas, and he was really grateful for it. And I don't remember if it was then or sometime after that, but he talked about how there was a convention of biblical scholars who, were trying to figure out which texts were the most accurate as far as, the history of Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And they'd all decided that if there was one text that was accurate, it was the Gospel of Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Thomas the
And the line that I remember the most from that book is where it's... This is as close as I can get without, and it's not a terribly rough paraphrase. The disciples asked Jesus, "When will the kingdom of God come?" Jesus replied, "The kingdom of God is spread upon the earth, and men do not see it."
Uh-huh. You're already here.
Right. Which, I mean, that's sort of a Buddhist thought, but it's also saying, hey, don't worry about the afterlife shit. That's bullshit. Make this world, recognize that this world is the beauty that we all inhabit. It is paradise, which of course, ruins the whole the Christian religion is currently practiced by all the denominations.
It just kind of undermines the whole damn thing.
Yeah. For in the primitive church, when men had to be drawn into the faith by signs, just as the Holy Spirit was made manifest by a visible sign, so also a bodily affliction by the devil was the visible sign of a man who was excommunicated. Ooh.
So what, do you get a tattoo or something?
Gosh, you broke your leg and it wasn't set right, so now you have a limp, and that means you're no longer. Mm-hmm. Well, that does fit in with shit the Old Testament says.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that ain't cool for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, no.
And it is not unfitting that a man whose case is not quite desperate should be delivered to Satan.
Obviously.
You got a cold, so you're going to hell.
Yep.
For he is not given to the devil as one to be damned, but to be corrected. Yeah, okay. So you got a cold. We're gonna send you to hell for a couple of years so you can be horribly tortured, and then you'll get to meet Jeebus.
Yep. Purgatory.
Since
and all
it
that.
is in, yeah, since it is in the power of the church, when she pleases, to deliver him again from the hands of the devil. And if she doesn't please, well, you're fucked. So says St. Thomas. Therefore, the lifting of the ban of excommunication, when prudently used by a discreet exorcist, is a fitting remedy for those who are possessed.
Yeah. Where does this fit in with the selling of indulgences?
Man, we're not. I am not going into this. I am not going
No.
into this because
But Nider adds that the exorcist must be particularly aware of making too presumptive a use of his powers, or of mingling any ribaldry or jesting with the serious work of God, or adding to it anything that smacks of superstition or witchcraft, for otherwise he will hardly escape punishment, as he shows by an example. Yeah, starting to think this whole damn thing's a joke, but whatever.
So now I'm wondering, is it wrong for an exorcist to ride his Vespa from Rome to Spain? Isn't that a Russell Crowe movie?
Uh-huh.
Which he kind of did something similar in the movie Gladiator, only you rode a horse from Germany to
To
Spain.
Okay.
Yeah. For Blessed Gregory, in his first dialogue, tells of a certain woman who, against her conscience, yielded to her husband's persuasions to take part in the ceremonies at the vigil of the dedication of the Church of Saint Sebastian. And because she joined in the church's procession against her conscience, she became possessed and raged publicly. So she wasn't really cool with the church being dedicated, and because of that, because she said, I'm not really sure if this is the right thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyways, she became possessed.
Oh, man, that blows Pascal's wager out of the water.
What? Oh, it does. When the priest of that church saw this, he took the cloth from the altar and covered her with it. And the devil suddenly entered into the priest. And then he promptly jumped out a window, fell down some stairs, broke his neck, and then wound up in an asylum in Maryland near Georgetown, where George C. Scott would later shoot him. Spoiler, that's the premise of The Exorcist 3.
Mm-hmm.
And because he had presumed beyond his strength, he was constrained by his torments to reveal who he was, so says Saint Gregory.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah. That's... Dude.
I know, right?
Man. I just keep hearing Lewis Black talking about if he'd been born in Arkansas and how he'd swallow a gun.
And to show that no spirit of ribaldry must be allowed to enter into the holy office of exorcism, Nider tells that he saw in a monastery at Cologne a brother who was given to speaking jestingly, but who was a very famous expeller of devils. This man was casting a devil out of a man possessed in the monastery, and the devil asked him to give him some place to which he could go. This pleased the brother, and he jokingly said, Go to my privy. So the devil went out, and when in the night the brothers wished to go and purge his belly, the devil attacked him so savagely in the privy that he had difficulty with difficulty escaped with his life. So, for starters, he kind of brought this on himself.
So your fear of something reaching up and grabbing you while you're sitting on the toilet in the outhouse might be justified.
Yep.
Oh God,
Obviously.
what is and there's actually something that's credible. That there was a king named something like Ironsides, and somebody wanted to kill him, so they rigged up a crossbow in the toilet in his castle, and when he sat down on it, the crossbow fired a bolt right up his ass and killed him.
What a hell of a way to die.
Yeah, that is a thing.
Okay.
God damn it.
So just for shits and giggles.
No pun intended.
No, it was totally intended. I had to Google monster in the outhouse, and it's like a holiday company, 6-foot inflatable animated monster. Animated monster outhouse scene, inflatable decor. Gemio animated air-blown door opening spooky. Okay, I guess I'm not the first person who thought of the monster in the outhouse. Well, there's no monster. There's a monster in the toilet.
God damn it. Who the oh God. David Macaulay. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's an American artist, and he lives in the UK. Last I heard, he does some really neat books. One of his books is Motel of the Mysteries, which is this satire of how archaeologists fuck things up.
Okay.
Like humanity was wiped out, almost completely wiped out in the late 80s by junk mail. And, these archaeologists dig up a hotel or a motel and like one of the illustrations, they think that the toilet seat with the sanitized for your protection strip on it is the thing that it has an illustration of a woman wearing the toilet seat around her neck, and then the lid is behind her head, and the sanitized for your protection strip is holding it to her head. It's funny as fuck. He did a book on castles, and that's where I can remember the whole thing about the King Ironsides or whomever, the king that, and this is documented as well as anything can be from that period of time, where somebody did put a crossbow in the toilet so that when the king sat down on it, it shot the crossbow bolt into his ass and killed him. Yeah. Oh my God. The first sentence of this next paragraph.
I know, it's a banger.
But it's special care is to be taken that those who are obsessed through witchcraft should not be induced to go to witches to be healed. The authors of this book and the translator of the edition that this is taken from, that nutbag who lived in the early 20th century, were clearly obsessed with witchcraft.
Just a little bit.
For St. Gregory goes on to say of the woman we have just mentioned, her kindred and those who loved her in the flesh, wow, chicka, wow, wow,
Mm-hmm.
took her to some witches to be healed, by whom she was taken to a river and dipped in the water with many incantation, and upon this she was violently shaken, and instead of one devil being cast out, a legion entered into her, and she began to cry out in their several voices. Therefore her kindred confessed what they had done, and in great grief wrought to her by the holy bishop Fortunatus, who by daily prayers and fasting entirely restored her to health. And I have never heard of Bishop Fortunatus.
Bishop of
I
Naples, who was appointed to that see by St. Gregory the Great in 593 upon the deposition of Demetrius.
He was also Fortunatus was also a character in Shakespeare, which was the inspiration for for the name of the dog in the God damn it, Madeline Ingle.
Little House on
Her
the Prairie?
books. No. A Wind in the Door. I think that's the name of the book.
Never heard of him.
Oh, God damn it. Let me look that.
Fine, but while you do that. But since it has been said that exorcists must beware lest they make use of anything savoring of superstition or witchcraft, some exorcist may doubt whether it is lawful to use certain unconsecrated herbs and stones. In answer, we say that it is so much the better if the herbs are consecrated. Damn straight it is. But that if they are not, then it is not superstitious to use a certain herb called demonifuge, or even the natural properties of stones. But he must not think that he is casting out devils by the power of these, for when he would fall into the error of believing that he could use other herbs and incantations in the same way, and this is the error of necromancers, who think they can perform this kind of work through the natural and unknown virtues of such objects.
Okay, my bad. I was thinking of Fortinbras, who is a character in Hamlet, and that is the name also of the Labrador dog and Madeline Ingle's A Wrinkle in Time, A Wind in the Door, and A Swiftly Tilting Planet. She wrote a couple other books, but A Wrinkle in Time, A Wind in the Door, and A Swiftly Tilting Planet are of that series, because there's a number of them in that series. Those are the best ones because they're religious, but they're more scientific than they are religious. And the film adaptations, all of them, of A Wrinkle in Time have been terrible, from what I understand. I
would expect no less from Christian Scientists.
Yeah.
But no.
A Wrinkle in Time is good because while there's aspects of religion in it, it's not tied so tightly to religion as, say, anything that, like C.S. Lewis's young adult novels, which are horribly tied. When I was a kid, I tuned in on TV, and there was a cartoon version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I watched it, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is a really thinly veiled allegory about Christianity, and this sucks." And I was devoutly religious at that time, and then I tried to. A few years ago, tried to listen to an audiobook version of his Out of the Silent Planet, which is his science fiction story. And it was like, you know, I didn't get very far in it. And I was like, no, this is way too Jeebus for me. His Till We All Have Faces is a retelling of Greek myth. And it ain't bad, but the only reason it's good-ish is because he understands, the structure of religion better than a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
I had to read that as part of a college course that I took. Yeah, well, I thought it was, it was like, it was a college course on mythology, so I thought it was going to be like, a whole big thing on dealing with, Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, explaining the structure of mythology. And no, it was actually modern literature based on mythology.
Oh.
And it was, that was annoying. And that's where I read A Bull from the Sea and the King Must Die. And
okay,
man, did I butt heads with that professor in that class. Part of it was because I was an asshole, but part of it was because that whole English department at that university had an authoritarian strain to it.
Mm-hmm. I'm shocked.
Yeah. These are the in the late 1800s, we had riots in the States because one guy wanted to produce Shakespearean plays that were adapted to modern, then modern society, whereas another guy was, no, we must do the plays exactly as Shakespeare wrote them and make no changes whatsoever. And unfortunately, the asshole who said we must strictly adhere to how Shakespeare originally wrote the plays won those riots. I'm not kidding. There were
riots over this shit. Like, holy fuck, people.
I mean, and when I say riots, I mean riots like buildings were burned and people died over it.
Your culture is strange to me.
and this is not taught in our school system.
Oh, of course not.
No. All right. Therefore, St. Thomas says, Book 4, Dist 7, Art the Last, it must not be any corporeal powers, and therefore they are not to be influenced by invocations or any acts of sorcery, except insofar as they have entered into a pact with a witch. No, anyways. Of this Esaias, who the fuck is that? 28 speaks. We have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement. And thus he explains the passage in Job XLI. Fuck if I know what that means.
Ooh, what's an L?
It's Rome. Yeah. It's like 10-4 something. I don't know.
Is that 50? No.
Canst thou draw out Leviathan with an hook? not a hook, but an hook, and the following words. For he says, if one rightly considers all that has been said before, it will seem that it belongs to the heretical presumption of necromancers when anyone tries to make an agreement with devils or to subject them in any way to his own will.
I was right. L is 50, so that'd be 41. I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
Having then shown that man cannot of his own power overcome the devil, he concludes by saying, place your hand upon him, but understand that if you have any power, it is yet by divine virtue that he is overcome. And he adds, remember the battle which I wage against him. That is to say, the present being put for the future. I shall fight against him on the cross, where Leviathan will be taken with an hook. Hey, wait a minute. That is by the divinity hidden under the bait of humanity, since he will think our Saviour to be only a man. And afterwards it says, there is no power on earth to be compared with him, by which it is meant that no bodily power can equal the power of the devil, which is a purely spiritual power, says St. Thomas Power.
Didn't Homer Simpson call himself Max Power for a while?
I think he might have.
Yeah,
I haven't seen all of The Simpsons.
Nor have I. How are we looking on recording time?
I got about 33 minutes left, which means we've been going at it for a fuck of a long time. But we're also like 4 or 5 chapters or chapters from the end. I wish paragraphs from the end of the chapters. So
okay,
might as well press on and start afresh next time or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. But a man possessed by a devil can indirectly be relieved by the power of music, as was Saul by David's harp. There was some other shit going on there.
Yeah.
Or of a herb, not an herb, but a herb.
A herb.
Or of any.
It could be a herb.
It's not capitalized, so it can't be herb. Or of any other bodily matter in which there lies some natural virtue. What could that fucking possibly mean? Other bodily matter in which there lies some natural virtue? I mean, your spit's not contaminated with Satan, or your jizz, or your poop, or your piss? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Therefore, such remedies may be used as can be argued both from authority and by reason. For St. Thomas 26:7 says that stones and herbs may be used for the relief of a man possessed by a devil, and there are the words of St. Jerome. Okay, I gotta ask, how the fuck can stones relieve someone possessed by a devil?
No, man, he's totally saying everybody must get stoned.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know.
And not have rock.
That's the best I can come up with.
Yeah.
That's my best guess. And as for the passage in Tobias where the angel says, touching the heart and the liver, which you took from the fish, if a devil or an evil spirit trouble any, we must make a smoke thereof before the man or the woman. Is that like ninja smoke? Are they going to smoke a fatty or what? We must make a smoke thereof before the man or woman, and the patty shall be no more vexed. St. Thomas says, we ought not to marvel at this, for the smoke of a certain tree, when it is burned, seems to have the same virtue as if it has in it some spiritual sense or power of spiritual prayer for the future. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, they're huffing the company supply.
Well, I had ages ago, I had a roommate who claimed that he could, because he was really smart or whatever, that he knew how to grow weed that resembled a tree because it was so big. I am, needless to say, a bit dubious of that.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but I had this strain of Hawaiian. It was sitting on a milk crate in a pot, so maybe 2 feet off the floor. And I had 8-foot ceilings, and it went up to the ceiling and across, and then it was coming down, and the fucking thing would never stop flowering. It just flowered forever, and it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And these things, if they had been outside, would have been probably close to 15, maybe 20 feet tall. That's pretty tree-like for a weed.
Yeah, well, this guy's statement was like, say a 15-foot tall tree, right? Or better, it's going to have a trunk about a foot or so in diameter.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Well, that's what this guy was claiming that his weed could get. Which I can see it growing tall, but I can't see it growing that wide.
Yeah, and most people grow the stuff that looks like a little shrub. Well, whatever.
Yeah. Of the same opinion are Blessed Albert and his commentary on St. Luke 9 and Nicholas of Lyra and Paul of Burgos on 1 Samuel 16. The last name homilist comes to this conclusion, that it must be allowed that those possessed by a devil cannot only be relieved, but even entirely delivered by means of material things. Shop as usual and avoid panic buying. Understanding that in the latter case they are not very fiercely molested. And he proves this by reasoning as follows: devils cannot alter corporeal matter just at their will, but only by bringing together complementary active and passive agents, as Nicholas says. No. My head is not going to try to sort that out.
No.
In the same way, some material object can cause in the human body a disposition which makes it susceptible to the operations of the devil. For example, according to physicians, mania very much predisposes a man to dementia. We're not going down that road.
No.
And consequently to demoniac obsession. Calvin Klein's obsession. Therefore, if in such a case the predisposing passive agent be removed, it will follow that the active affliction of the devil will be cured.
Yeah.
Stroke me.
Uh-huh. Well, I was going to say, nuh-uh, that's bait, but...
You see that? That's bait.
Mm-hmm. In this light, we may consider the fish's liver. What light is that? And the music of David, by which Saul was at first relieved and then entirely delivered of the evil spirit. For it says, "And the evil spirit departed from him, but it was not consonant with the meaning of the Scripture to say that this was done by the merits or prayers of David, for the Scripture says nothing of any such matter, whereas it would have spoken notably in his praise if this had been so. This reasoning we take fro Paul of Burgos. I'm going to guess that's from Paul of Burgos. There is also the reason which we gave in question 5 of the first part, that Saul was liberated because of the harp was prefigured the virtue of the cross on which were stretched the sacred limbs of Christ's body. This guy's got a real kink for this.
Yeah. And I would much rather it be RuPaul than St. Paul, but...
Mm-hmm. And more is written there which may be considered together with the present inquiry. But we shall only conclude by saying that the use of material things in lawful exorcisms is not superstitious, and now it is expedient that we should speak about the exorcisms themselves, which is quite obvious because Part 2, Question 2, Chapter 6, coming up next time.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um...
And the only pluggables I've got are the Wayback Machine. Thank you for bringing us the Malleus Maleficarum.
There is a podcast that you might be interested in.
Another one?
Yeah, I know. Are you a fan of the writings of Homer?
Mm,
Obviously, the Iliad is kind of sucky, but the Odyssey is really cool.
I don't believe I've read the Odyssey. So,
how about Game of Thrones?
zero interest whatsoever.
Oh, okay. Well, there's. I've been listening to this podcast called the Chinese Lore Podcast.
Oh, okay.
And right now, the guy who's doing it is reading from a book called Investiture of the Gods.
Okay.
Which...
It's not a chariot of the gods, or a fruit of the gods, or food of the gods. Or...
Right. No, but it's it dates from like 100 years after the Iliad would have been written down, but it's sort of the same story, only it's, it takes place in China. In other words, I mean, you know what the Iliad is about. It's about the Trojan War.
Yeah.
And so this is sort of the same thing, only it's in China rather than in Greece or Turkey. And the dude is, the guy who reads it, he's taking the Chinese text and translating it into English, but he's also doing like what we do with this piece of shit, where he's, going, oh yeah, so despite the fact that this hasn't worked 50 times in the past, they're still going to do it this time around.
Of course.
Yeah. But and when I say it's like the Iliad, the Trojan War, supposedly, Paris kidnaps Helen, takes her to Troy, and that leads to the whole Trojan War thing because, she's supposed to belong to this Greek king and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Well, in Investiture of the Gods, this Chinese emperor is at this temple to a particular Chinese goddess and is like, wow, she's some hot mama. So I'm going to write on the walls of her temple a poem that says, you're a hot mama and I'd love to bang you. And, the goddess is like, dude, you fucking desecrated my temple. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to send a demon to fuck you up. And that's going to bring down the whole the whole Chinese empire at this time, blah blah blah,
Uh-huh.
and so I mean, there's like I don't know how many, because the dude does all kinds of different Chinese literature, and then there's like 70 episodes now of Investiture of the Gods. That's the latest one he's reading. It's worth listening to, and the Chinese television in like 2019 did a series based on it.
Oh.
And it's on, at least in the States, it's on Amazon with subtitles. And I mean, I haven't watched the series yet, but because I'm waiting for the dude to finish the book on the podcast. But it's kind of worth checking out. At least the podcast. And there's a trailer for the series, but it unfortunately does not have subtitles. But here's the link. I mean, it's not crappy effects or anything like that. I mean, it's a good production quality.
A video from Yukimoto on YouTube?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it doesn't have subtitles, but it's, I mean, you can, the Amazon, it being on Amazon Prime, it does have subtitles, but you can get a good idea of the thing. It is really, really interesting. The book that he's reading, and from the video, from the trailer, it looks like the series will be really good.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's and like I said, I'm waiting to the end of the dude reading that book to check out the series. But like his next, the next book that he's going to read on the series is Journeys to the West, which is one of the most hugely influential texts in Asia.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And it's really neat because, or the Investiture of the Gods is really neat because, one of the heroes is in trouble, so he, calls upon this most important figure who is Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and in reading the book, it's like, okay, yeah, but it's like in the Star Wars universe, if somebody called upon George Lucas to help him or something, one of the fictional characters of the Star Wars universe called upon George Lucas to help him fight a battle. That's
like breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, and the neat thing about the podcast is the dude says, okay, they're bringing in this character who is a one of the various Buddhas. He points out, he says, at the time the events that this story is supposed to depict, which it's loosely based on actual events, Buddhism wasn't a thing yet. So this is an anachronism.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So, yeah, it's really neat. But like I said, it's now into the, he's now 70 episodes, but they're short. They're like 30 minutes long. So it's not like,
Okay. I've been listening to a lot less podcasts lately and more. I've been listening to entire discographies on Spotify. But it'll only stick to an artist for like 4 or 5 hours, and then it starts playing other shit. It pisses me off because I'm usually really fucking busy and can't get it back on track.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm not a big fan of Spotify because, what's his fucking face? Rogan. They
Oh,
paid
that twat.
him.
Yeah. They paid
Yeah,
him
they
$100
paid.
million fucking dollars. That's why my Spotify bill went up.
Yeah. But no, I'm one of the things I'm doing because I've realized it makes me feel better is instead of listening to podcasts all the time, at least one day a week, I'm going to listen to nothing but music.
Yeah.
Which
yeah. Well, I've been
is
doing that every day at work, and it's been an improvement. But
yeah,
there's a tweet on X from East End Joe at East End Joe. If anybody wants to know why Gen X is mad, it's because we had to replace our record collections with a tape collection, that we had to replace with a CD collection, that we had to replace with an MP3 collection, and now need a subscription to listen to music.
yeah.
So my reply was,
yeah.
can confirm, but you missed the part where an artist whose music we had already paid for on cassette and CD had us banned from a site for allegedly trading copyrighted works during the MP3 stage. But yeah, more or less.
Yeah. And there was a BBC story. I don't know if I have a link to it. I don't think I do. But somebody I follow on Blue Sky posted it, where there's this guy who he's going around and he's finding all these tracks that are not available on streaming services.
Ooh.
And getting the streaming services to make them available. And yes, there are obscure artists that he's doing this for, but there's also really big name artists that he's doing this for.
Mm-hmm.
Like Annie Lennox
Mm-hmm.
and what's her face who married that soccer guy who's like really huge, Beckham, Victoria Beckham. Because I guess she was a singer before she married.
Wasn't she a Spice Girl or some shit?
Yeah, right. But there's a BBC series where like I said, there's a BBC article where the dude is, he's finding all these people, and there are folks who have, in like the 80s and 90s, they had a record deal, and for whatever reason, their album wasn't released. And now, because this dude made it available, convinced the labels to make it available on streaming, these folks are finding fans and are actually going back on. They're going on tour and shit like that. Yeah, because and the article says there's something like 2/3 of all recorded music is not available on any streaming service.
Oh yeah, there's a shit ton of stuff out there. Fuck me.
Yeah.
I have a whole box of cassettes and none of it would be streaming. Well, almost none of it would be streaming. But I don't have anything to play fucking cassettes on anymore.
Dude, I got all kinds of shit to play cassettes on. Well, it's the thing that pisses me off is I was me and some guys I went to college with, we did this band that was just, bug fuck shit, right? And I've lost all the cassettes that we made of it. Although I gave, copies of the cassettes to gal I was dating at the time, and somehow some of the tracks actually made it onto college radio stations in various parts of the country, and I would love to have recordings of that, but
that might be a little too obscure.
Yeah, and like that ex of mine, she has a very unique last name, but she is apparently very much not online. So I can't find her. I found like her sister, but her sister never liked me, so I'm not exactly inclined to message her and say, "Hey, could you contact your sister that I dated and get her to send me a copy of that
If she
song
still
I gave her?"
has it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I gave up a bunch of my tapes back in '09 because I was working at Wally World. The economy had crashed. I didn't have I couldn't, the car I had at the time wasn't working, and I had to walk to work. And one of the guys from Wally World was giving me a ride, and he had a truck from the mid '80s, and it had a cassette deck, and he like listening to stuff, and I'm like, well, I got all these cassette tapes that I'm not listening to anymore. Oh, let me give them to you.
Mm-hmm. No
So.
good deed goes unpunished.
I know. But yeah, and I had a buddy who he made me a mixtape of all this really neat stuff, and I lost the tape, but I knew some of the songs, and I was able to track some of them down, but like the website that hosted the tracks went offline because
MySpace?
I don't know. No, it was a really obscure website that the dude did. Like, the dude's obsession was obscure tracks by major artists.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually gave up on it. And so I lost some of the stuff. But, like, that friend of mine who gave me, who did that mixtape for me, like, some of his stuff was really obscure works by John Cale.
Oh.
Yeah. And one of the
John
tracks,
Cale.
which is
Not
you
J.J.
can
Cale.
find.
Not J.J.
No, John Cale.
Oh, okay.
John Cale was in Roxy Music or King Crimson. I can't remember which. And he and Brian Eno did 2 albums together, which are, they were never chart toppers, but they were really good.
Brian Eno, that's Tubular Bells, right?
No, that Tubular Bells is fuck, I forget. Tubular Bells is the soundtrack to The Exorcist, basically. Brian Eno he was King Crimson, and he also did U2's Octoon Baby. He was the producer on that.
Okay.
Oops. Wait. Oh, yeah.
Brian Peter George Jean Baptiste de La Salle Eno, known mononymously known as Eno, is an English musician. It's quite the fucking mouthful of a name for an English musician.
Yeah.
Cordoba.
I just dropped a link to YouTube version of
Cordoba.
Yeah.
There's no rich Corinthian leather in there, is there?
Yeah. No. I have no idea if Cale or Eno knew about this, but there is an excellent novel that would make a soundtrack for, called The Monkey Wrench Gang by Edward Abbey.
Oh. Okay.
That's the novel that inspired people to get really the official description would be terroristic in terms of protecting the environment.
Yep.
So, like in the novel, they like blow up bulldozers that are being used to create, as part of strip mines and things like that.
Yeah.
But the novel, as a work of literature, is fantastic. And then when you consider its environmental message, it is really important. And the sequel, Hayduke Lives, is almost as good. George Hayduke is a character in there, and it was so inspirational that a guy who wrote a whole series of books called Getting Even, as in revenge, he adopted the pen name George Hayduke.
Do I still have one? I might have a Lumpanics Unlimited catalog from about 1994 here somewhere.
Oh.
So it's got all the Hayduke and the Ragnar Benson and the this and the that and the other things. Yes.
Find me if you still have it, because I don't have one from that period. Though I was a subscriber and I did buy lots of books from Lumpanics. Find me some of the drug manufacturing books titles.
Yeah.
So I can see if I can dig them up, find them on eBay and things like that.
Tical and tryptamines I've known and loved, and
yeah.
phenylalanines I've known and loved, and yeah. There's all kinds of groovy stuff out there.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Lumpanics Unlimited is no longer around.
Nobody's stepped up to take their place?
No. So
if
you want to find a lot of those books, you got to go to eBay. It's like the Gingery, the Dave Gingery books.
Yeah, Home Forge and fun stuff like that.
Right. If you want them, you got to go to eBay. God damn. Lindsay Publications. That's the printing company that did a lot of that stuff. Yeah. After Dave Lindsay retired, that shit's not available. So you got to find it on eBay or, on the Internet Archive.
Hey, I'll bet you that'd be a good place to look for that, actually.
That's the Lindsay Publications catalog is where I learned about machining and said, I think I need to go to school for that. And then I learned about all kinds of stuff like Discordianism and I knew I had read the Illuminatus trilogy before that, but I did not know that there was an actual book called Principia Discordia until I found the Lumpanics Unlimited catalog. So,
yep. Oh, I got a minute and a half left on my recorder.
Well, go ahead and pause it because we ain't reading shit more from this.
Yeah, no, we're. I'm gonna have